You're watching Monty TV. I'm Jackie Karsh, joined now by Mike Kriak, who is the Chief Operating Officer and Chief Financial Officer at Mashable. Mike, thank you so much for sitting down with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
The last time that we sat down at the Montgomery Summit, we were doing Meerkat. That was 2 years ago. 2 years later, everything is live. We got Facebook Live, Instagram stories. I feel like Snapchat kind of revolutionized that too. Where does Mashable stand on live?
You see a whole host of ways in which stories are being told across multiple platforms, both from a live component, from a short form video component, from a longer form premium video component. Probably since the last time we chatted, our video views have grown 10x, so roughly around 400 million at the moment. Even just up from last year, that's about a 10x growth from about 40 million. Live is a reality of that and a component of that. I think the biggest change for live that has happened since Meerkat is this push to premium. So, and whether that's previously recorded, or in live. So there's a whole reality that happens that really needs to focus on making sure that it's a premium, engaging piece of content.
It seemed like 2 years ago, the way we were headed was it was all about who could put something up quickly.
Yes.
Now it's all about engaging with live video. What does that give to an audience, and why do you think the trend is really heading in this direction?
The notion of engagement means that you're thoughtful about it, that at Mashable we're all about our super fans and what they love, and you really have to understand your audience. At the core of what we do is use data to inform our content creation process. And so by using data to know what your audience really loves, then it's really the perfect marriage of art and science that's associated with creating a great piece of content. That has to be the basis for everything. And so whether the programming is live or whether the programming is recorded, that reality, that basis has to exist. It's just a reality. It's the table stakes are really raised across for a lot of digital media players as much as they are for traditional media.
You have a secret weapon at Mashable called Velocity.
That's right.
Which is this cool, really under the radar that senses trends. I think you might be the only news company that's using AI to enhance your reports. How did you figure that was something that would work for Mashable?
Yeah, data has always been at the core of our DNA, starting with Pete Cashmore, our founder, very early on. The reality is that there's so much content out there. There's so many stories to be told, and there's only so much time and so many ways in which you can distribute that content, right? You can't publish a whole host of stories and shove them all through Facebook or shove them all on Snapchat. To be very selective of that approach. So that thesis then became the reality for us that said, look, we've got to figure out a way to find out what's at the top of the pyramid for what people want to watch and what people want to read. And ultimately that top was really what we drove at. And so naturally data science and artificial intelligence, hiring a lot of key individuals in that field to be able to write and develop algorithms, to be able to patent that technology, really early on became a focus for us. Because once you have a really great tool, then you have really great journalists that we have at Mashable. When you marry those two, the art and science that's associated with that ultimately produces the maximum number of shares and uniques and engagement that exists at the top of that pyramid for what can be only a finite number of stories that can be watched and read on a daily basis.
The dark side of that is that you're having the audience kind of dictate what you report on.
Within Velocity, that actively crawls 300 million URLs, has indexed those, actively crawls 3 to 4 million on a real-time basis. That then becomes a listening tool on a device. The journalists are the ones that still decide what stories to be told. The internet is saying this is important and this is important, and it's ultimately up to our journalists to add context around that, because our audience wants to know why this is important as much as what it is that's important, and I think that's key. Humans and the great storytelling that our journalists do is always going to be at the core and center of our value just as much as our data. They're equally important. So it's not so much that the audience is telling us what to do, it's recognizing, acknowledging that that's the case, and then providing that context together for that storytelling.
How does Mashable utilize engagement via the influencer?
The notion of the influencer, you and I are influencers in our own spheres and what's important to us.
Thank you very much.
That's it, there you go. And I think
flattery will get you everywhere.
But I think it's really important to know that. We're at a point to being able to understand what's important for all of our audience, the ones that actively engage, the ones that actively share, and what makes those connections. I love Broadway, and I love Star Wars, and I love X and Y and Z, and the combination of those things means that I'm part of a community in each of those realities. Those are ultimately the new influencers. The influencers that want to watch something, that are willing to share something, that are willing to spend time with content, those are way, way more important. Those new influencers are way more important than getting your story in front of a celebrity or getting your story a part of that. That isn't to say that you ignore that. There's always a perfect mix. But the influencers are us. They're not necessarily somebody that's out there.
And they have such a good pulse on their audience.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Mike.
All right, yeah, thank you so much. Thanks for having me.